Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody for the evening 6 to 7 p.m. Bhagavad Gita session. Before we begin the session, let us offer a praise to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki jai Shri Shri Ridai Gauranga ki jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai Jai Gaura Premanande. Welcome again for the Bhagavad Gita session, wherein we are discussing on the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as it is. The 17th chapter is titled The Divisions of Faith. Arjuna is asking the question to Lord Krishna about the position, about the situation of a person who is manufacturing his own ways of worship, his own ways of different rituals, practices, by not following the standard Vedic regulations, scriptural regulations. Rather, he is just following them out of his own intentions to follow them. So, what is the situation of the person? Whether he will achieve the destination, what he is destined for, or rather, destination which scriptures give us. Because finally, by following the rules, regulations of the scriptures and following all the various worship process, the Vedic regulations aim the person to get liberated from this material world. It may be a step-by-step process, or it may be a very gradual process, or it may be a direct process like bhakti. Any process, the intention is to gradually purify the person and elevate him to the highest platform of liberation. So whether the person who is under different modes, who doesn't follow any rules, regulations, whether he will achieve the same destination, that was the question. So Krishna is elaborately describing how worship has so many rituals, worship has so many types of offerings of food, some practices of austerities, some penances, some sacrifices, some dhanam, that is charities. So all these things are all part of the whole system of worship and various practices. So Krishna has so far described that people under the different modes of nature, they develop a particular type of faith to worship, to develop one particular type of worship. It's like people in the mode of goodness, they develop the inclination to worship devatas. And people in the mode of passion, they worship some powerful personalities like demons, like that. And then people in the mode of ignorance, they worship some ghosts and spirits. Similarly, the type of food which the living entities consume also is dependent on the influence of three modes of nature. Krishna was explaining in detail in the previous session we have discussed how foods in the mode of goodness, they help in increasing the duration of life, purify the mind, and also it aids in having bodily strength. And such foods are actually in the category of vegetables, fruits, cereals, pulses, milk and milk products. Whereas foods in the mode of passion, they only increase bodily pain, they cause distress, they cause diseases. And foods in the mode of ignorance are tasteless, they're decomposed, and they lead to degradation of a person. Right now, in the next verses, verse number 11 onwards, Krishna is going to describe on the aspect of sacrifice. Sacrifice, this particular word which Krishna is going to use, yajna. Krishna already has used them extensively in the beginning of the chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Some chapter 2, 3, 4. It's very elaborately explained about this word yajna. Right here, specifically, Krishna is going to explain to us yajna or sacrifice performed under different modes. How basically yajna in its true term means Lord Vishnu. Yajna basically means any activity which is meant to satisfy Lord Krishna. If you recollect, in chapter 3, Krishna very clearly mentioned yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Right? Any activity which is not done for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna, this is going to cause bondage to us. Krishna had mentioned. Right? Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So you have to work in this way, which will be the cause of your liberation, Krishna recommends. This is the guiding principle on which Krishna explains the concept of karma yoga, and all the other different principles which Krishna explains is developed on this basic understanding. So here in this section of Bhagavad Gita in 17th chapter, wherein Krishna is explaining the type of sacrifices which people may perform under the influence of different modes. It is interesting to note some very fine points which Krishna is going to explain. So we'll just go to the understanding now with regard to the different sacrifices Krishna is mentioning here. So this is chapter 17, text number 11. Krishna is going to first explain sacrifices done in the mode of goodness. Afala kankshibhir yajño vididishtoya ijjate yastavyam eveti manaha samadhayasa satvikaha. Krishna is explaining that translation of sacrifices, that sacrifice performed according to duty, according to scriptural rules, and with no expectation of reward, is of the nature of goodness. So that sacrifice which qualifies these aspects, Krishna explains 3 aspects here. What are those 3 aspects? Krishna says, Afala kankshibhi yajna. Afala kankshi means wherein a performer is doing sacrifices or performs the various rules, regulations without any expectation of result or reward. Because everybody wants to have some reward for whatever actions they're doing. Right? It's called phala apekshita. Whereas afala kankshibhir, afala means no result, no expectation of any result, no desire of result from the performance of sacrifice. And vididishtaha basically means according to the scriptural rules, regulations. Right? So that sacrifice performed, the first aspect is with no expectation of reward. Second aspect is with following the rules, regulations of the scriptures. And thirdly, Krishna says that it has to be done as a duty. Yastavyam eveti manaha. Right? So performed, the activities performed as a matter of duty is a very important aspect which you have to understand. Because the activities which the Vedic scriptures give is not whimsically given or simply done out of just that you have to do, just that for whatever reason you simply follow. No, there is some reason. Just like we have understood about the varnashrama system. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna very clearly says that chatur varnyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagasha. The 4 divisions of the social aspects, that is, society is divided into 4 social divisions known as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the 4 spiritual divisions, 4 ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. Krishna says this system of varnashrama is created by me. Chatur varnyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagasha. Based on the influence of the different modes of nature, and the type of work which the human being is inclined. Because type of work you'll be inclined will be based on your previous actions you have done. The net result of, or the cumulative result of those action reactions will determine your inclination to work in a specific manner. So guna karma vibhagashaha. So these divisions of social divisions and spiritual divisions which Krishna mentions, varna, ashrama, is not simply randomly or accidentally made. It is based on a very scientific basis on which Krishna says that this is how the world is divided. So the whole purpose of varnashrama is, see that based on your inclination, you are supposed to perform certain specific duties. And they are known as prescribed duties. This is what Krishna explains in 3rd chapter. Right? The total 3rd chapter is dedicated to give understanding about the prescribed duties to be performed by the human beings, especially how to discharge our prescribed duty in connection with Krishna consciousness. As Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, was declining to even perform his prescribed duty of fighting as a Kshatriya. Right? He was telling, I will go away to forest, I'll do begging, I'll take sannyasa. So Krishna very categorically explains that you have to perform your prescribed duty of fighting, Arjuna. You cannot run away from your duty. And Krishna also mentions that you do your duty and let others do others' duty. To perform another's duty is dangerous, Krishna says. So like this, many good instructions Krishna gives in the 3rd chapter. So likewise, all of us are born with certain inclinations to do some certain work with certain natures. Srila Prabhupada explains in one more context in the Bhagavad Gita, we have a specific psychophysical nature based on which we will be inclined to perform certain activities. So, based on those inclinations, we are supposed to perform some duties. Whereas in Kali Yuga, all such divisions and all such classifications are not very practical. What is recommended is everybody should follow the Sankirtana Yajna process. Because we cannot clearly distinguish or discriminate who is belonging to what Varna Ashrama. Right? Because things are all not in a proper way. Kali Yuga is all topsy-turvy that way. The best process recommended is to simply follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. The process of akarma, or the Krishna conscious process, or what Krishna recommends for us to perform activities, that is the bhakti process, the simple process of chanting Hare Krishna every day and reading Bhagavad Gita every day, also trying to preach the principles of Bhagavad Gita to as many people as possible, and trying to offer the food to Lord Krishna. Whatever we eat, your meals, what you cook, please offer it to Krishna and then have as Krishna Prasad. And lastly, Krishna says that we have to worship him, offer our respects to him. And this much if you do, Krishna gives assurance that you are performing the right process in this Kali Yuga, and all other things are included in this. That's the point. So, coming to our main discussion here, Krishna recommending is mentioning about the sacrifices and the different modes of nature, right? So, because sacrifice or yajna becomes part of any ritual, any type of worship, even people who manufacture some so-called worship or develop some different types of faith, not based on rules, regulations, also will have some sacrifices. So specifically, Krishna is beginning to explain about sacrifices in the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness has 3 characteristics. The mode of goodness sacrifice has 3 characteristics. One is the sacrifice is performed without any expectation of reward, number 1. And number 2 is the sacrifice is performed according to rules, regulations. And number 3, sacrifice is performed as a matter of duty, according to duty. Right? So this is very important. According to duty means it is an obligation which we have to do. To give one more simple example, parents' duty is there towards children to see that they take care of them and give them proper training, education. As Bhagavatam says, that a father, mother, guardian, teacher's duty is to see that they train their dependents in such a way that the dependents are relieved from the cycle of birth and death, or they prepare them to come out of the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, they should not take up this responsibility. Bhagavatam goes on to goes to this extent to say, Pitananasya, Jananinanasya, Gurunanasya, Namochayed Yasamupeta Mrityum. Namochayed means once somebody has come, has become your dependent by the arrangement of the providence, will of providence. Somebody has come as is your son, daughter, dependent, or student, like that. So it is responsibility of the parent, guardian, to see that the dependents get the right understanding, proper knowledge to relieve themselves from the cycle of birth and death. It's like the Kshatriya. The Kshatriya's duty is to not only protect the citizens from the material point of view, give physical protection so that the body is not injured, but one more responsibility is the spiritual way of giving protection, to see that the knowledge of spiritual understanding, just like in the 4th chapter we see, Krishna said, this knowledge of Gita was first imparted to Sun God. Sun God is a Kshatriya, right? He is supposed to disseminate this knowledge to the entire universe. That's what Sun God did. He imparted this knowledge to his son, Manu. Manu gave it to his son, Ikshvaku. Like this, the Kshatriya's duty is to see that this knowledge which they have received in their succession is passed on to the next generations, to the entire humanity. And the purpose, very nicely, Prabhupada explains, why the Kshatriyas are given this knowledge. Because the royal order is meant to, the Kshatriyas are supposed to protect the people from the material bondage of lust. So the Kshatriyas are supposed to impart these lessons of spiritual understanding to the citizens by education, by culture, by devotion. That's why we see in Vedic culture, the kings used to establish big temples. They used to promote these aspects of Vedic culture through education, through various aspects of different platforms like dance, art, and devotional aspects. Because the executive heads of all the countries, of all the different kingdoms, they are supposed to understand this knowledge and also impart this knowledge to one and all, to the entire humanity. That was the purpose. It's a duty. Just giving you an example of how one has to perform his duties. So likewise, every one of us as human beings have a duty. Right? That's what Krishna is mentioning here. So the whole background why Krishna is mentioning here in this verse, this particular aspect is, in the mode of goodness, what we understood about mode of goodness, Sattva-guna, Krishna mentioned in 14th chapter is that it is a platform of better understanding, platform of knowledge, platform of happiness, right? So the general tendency of a conditioned soul is what? That I do activities for my own satisfaction, right? And the mind will always dictate us that you do this, you do that, right? Here specifically, Krishna is mentioning that when sacrifice is performed without any such motivation, without any such agenda, without any such desire, without any expectation of reward, as we see. This has been the instruction of Lord Krishna from the very beginning. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan. Just perform your duty, and the results, you are not entitled for the fruits of your activities, Krishna mentioned. Right? Duty you do, but don't expect the results. Right? Results, you have to offer it to whom? To Lord Krishna. So this concept of duty, or the principle of duty, Krishna has been stressing from the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So even in the matter of sacrifice, this should be done as a matter of duty. Right? It's like we chant Hare Krishna. This should be done as our duty. But duty again with certain rules, regulations, as mentioned by scriptures. Okay. So it's like we have the aspect of going to the place of worship. Like we would like to go to temples. People of other religions, they like to go to their respective place of worship, like church or mosque or synagogue, right? So people generally what they take it, or what they mean by this type of a process of going to some place of worship is that that they want to utilize dharma for artha. Dharma, artha, kama. There are 4 types of specific activities which are mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, known as purushartha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So, but these things have been, in a different way interpreted in the modern context, and they think, oh, I go for worship, or I go to temple for some, if I can get some material benefit of, say, money, or if if my problems in my life of, say, health problem, or my financial problem, or some problem which I'm going through in my material life, that is all solved, then it is very good. Right? Dharma, artha, kama. The whole aspect of dharma is performed with the intention that I materially benefit, and from the benefit I get, I enjoy this material world more and more. So they forget the last aspect. We also have to get liberated from this material world. The actual understanding of dharma, artha, kama, moksha is that, and dharma is performed so that you perform your duty, and naturally, automatically, Krishna and Krishna's arrangement in this material world is such that performance of your dharmic activities will bestow you all the necessities of life. It's like we're understanding from 3rd chapter very nicely. Krishna says, Ishtan bhogani vo deva tair dattan apradayibhyo. It's like when you perform proper sacrifices, yajnas, and all the activities as per Vedic regulations, the different devatas in charge of different universal affairs, or all order carriers of Lord Krishna, they become pleased and they provide all the necessities of life required for our happy and comfortable life. That is the point. But people have taken it otherwise. Nowadays, people would like to go to the place of worship, like temple or whatever other places of worship, if they are materially benefited. In fact, it is not uncommon. We have come across certain such things. You would also all heard. It's like sometimes people go to places of worship and make sort of a deal with God. Okay, I'm having this problem, God. If you solve this, I'll come and offer this much charity to you, or this much dana to you, for a business deal. Right? Yeah, if this business clicks, or this business is successful, then 10% profit of this business I will give you. Right? Like this, people think that God, Lord Krishna, is meant to just fulfill their demands. Right? So generally we see people are driven by these motivations with some purpose of material benefits they want to have, but they're not doing this activity like how Krishna is telling us here. Apala khangshibihi. Without any expectation of reward, nobody is trying to do, because that requires that you have to come to the platform of mode of goodness. That is the point. So, rather, the recommendation here, what Krishna is giving is, we should go to the place of worship, temple, church, or whatever, the place of worship, as a matter of duty, and offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and offer whatever we can offer. Just like Krishna says, Na patram pushpam phalam toyam yobe bhaktya prayachati. Offer whatever you can based on your capacity. You can offer some flowers, fruits, some things for me as an offering. I'll accept it. So, thing is, going to place of worship is a regulation from the Vedic literatures, which is very essential. Not it is some blind faith, because temples or places of worship are those places where Lord is personally residing, and He will accept the worship. Wherein the regulated way of worship and all the different daily pujas are happening systematically, so that you get the inspiration to go on in our regular daily routine lives. Because when we are outside in this world, interacting with so many different people around us, so many different activities we are performing, definitely we'll be influenced by different natures of different people. So temple is supposed to give you that spiritual inspiration, because when you come to temple, not only you will have darshan of the Lord, the all-merciful Lord beautifully decorated in a well-sanctified place. You'll also hear the Sankirtan of Lord Krishna going on in the temple, which again is so, satisfying to the soul. And definitely when you meet devotees in the temple, they will speak about spiritual subject matters, which will again add on to your understanding of your spiritual progress. So like this temple is not simply, going to temple is not simply a matter of ritual or some, just because, people are telling to go, we'll go. Or with some material motives. No, temple is going to temple. The whole purpose is how I can spiritually uplift me. Right? It is going to that place wherein the spiritual activities are performed in a regular way. It is surcharged with spiritual energy. That you go there and you just get inspired, get motivated, get enthused about to perform your own activities. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said that the ISKCON society, which Prabhupada has established, Hare Krishna movement centers all over the world, are meant to give an opportunity for the people in the material world to come and have association with devotees. Association is a very important aspect. In one of our teachings, by one of the acharyas by name Srila Rupa Goswami, he explains how when you come to temple, what happens? There are 6 types of exchanges of love which happens. Dadati pratigrahanati, guhyam bhungte bhujete chaiva shadvida priti lakshanam. Right? Just like when you go to temple as a matter of duty, because you as part and parcel of Krishna, part and parcel of Supreme Lord, you are supposed to offer your worship. And temple is such a place of worship, or such a place of inspiration wherein your worship is properly done. If you can maintain all these standards of worship to whatever best possible way in the house, yes, definitely your house becomes temple. But all of us definitely agree that temple is again a place wherein the deities of the Lord Krishna is personally being installed in a specific, in a specific manner. And especially in India, the sentiments with regard to temple is very high, very great, because temples are those, centers wherein Lord is mercifully bestowing mercy to everybody. Right? So this point we have to appreciate. So when you come to temple, definitely you will bring some offerings to Lord Krishna, Dadati. And temple also will not make you go simply. In the temple, whoever comes to ISKCON temple at least, they'll all be given prasadam. Right? Prasadam in terms of, say, flower garland. And definitely prasadam of, Lord offered to Krishna. Right? Food offered to Lord Krishna. It's called prasadam, mercy is given. Everybody will get some mercy of Krishna. And just you have prasadam prasade sarva dukkhana. All our miseries are immediately relieved. So, people thinking that, what is the use of going to temple? Just to worship God. They are totally ignorant of why we are supposed to go to temple. Because in the material world, in the midst of so many things around us, we are influenced by so many natures and different types of understandings. Temple is that particular way of associating and charging ourselves, because the temple is a place of completely spiritual aspects are going on there. Spiritual energy is being is being vibrated there. So from there you take inspiration to practice Krishna consciousness. And nowadays it has become even more accessible through the technology, that you can sit at your place and then have the temple darshan. It's like from our temple, Vrindavan Chandrodaya Mandir. Every day you can have live darshan from morning Mangalarati onwards. Morning Mangalarati at 4:30, you can have live darshan. Just that you need to get up and get ready and sit in front of your computer or your mobile, and Mangalarati starts. And the whole temple program from 4:30 up to 9 o'clock is telecast live. And even otherwise, after that also live darshan is going on, as long as temple is open, whatever temple opening hours. All the aratis, all the different activities are all telecast live. So either you physically are there in the temple, once in a while, or which virtually you keep association in the temple, because all the activities are systematically performed in the temple. All the pujas are performed systematically in the temple. So it's a big source of inspiration. So thinking that what is the use of going to temple is totally ignorant thinking, totally disregarding our the purpose of human life. Human life's purpose is to Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya Janiya Shuniya Vishakhani. One of the acharyas explained to us. I have mentioned previously also how human form of life is to worship Radha Krishna, become devotees of Radha Krishna, because we got this human form of life. That is the only purpose. If you don't do this, you are actually committing suicide. So people who say, what is the use of going to any place of worship? They are totally ignorant about their spiritual welfare. As Krishna mentioned, they are like kripanas, misers. They are misusing their human asset only for their own gratification. They don't know what valuable asset we have got in the human form of life. That utilize it properly and prepare ourselves to go back to Krishna Loka. That is the whole purpose. So the whole aspect, as we are discussing now, dharma is not simply meant to achieve some material benefit and then some sense gratification. Rather, dharma is supposed to make you follow the rules, regulations to elevate you to the next level of spiritual advancement. So, as a matter of duty, even if you don't understand all the things, background of everything, simply as a matter of duty, if you start going to temple, that also is going to benefit you. Go to the temple, offer respects to the Lord, and then just going down. That's what Krishna says. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Right? Actually, when you go to temple, you're going to follow all these four principles. Thinking of Krishna, becoming devotee of Krishna, worshipping Krishna, and offering respects to Krishna. These four things is what Krishna repeats in Bhagavad Gita. This easily is performed if you go to the temple and offer your respects. In one more wonderful literature known as Nectar of Devotion by Sri Rupa Goswami, he says, when you see the Arati of Lord Krishna, it is as good as you are performing Arati, and you will get so much of spiritual upliftment. When you see the beautiful form of Krishna nicely decorated in the temple, just appreciating, oh, so nicely Krishna is decorated, this will uplift you to so many levels of spiritual advancement. Like this, every aspect in Krishna consciousness, in bhakti, especially coming to temple, and when you get prasadam of flowers, you just smell it. It is said this very smell, aroma of the flowers offered to Lord Krishna is so wonderful that it is going to relieve you from the cycle of birth and death. And in temple, when you come, definitely you'll get Chanamrita. The water which is used to bathe the Lord is gone through his body and it's through his lotus feet. And if you take Charanamrita, what happens? Again, you're relieved from so many sinful reactions. So like this, every step taken to come into the temple is going to relieve you from abundant, so many action-reaction cycles in our life. This is what Ambarish Maharaj also recommended, right? So we have to use every sense of ours in service of Krishna. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vacham sivaikuntha gunanu varnane karo harer mandira marjana adishu. It said, use your hands to do mandira marjana. Either your house becomes mandira and you do marjana. Marjana means cleansing, housekeeping basically. Or you come to a temple where some things are being maintained, you try to do some mandira marjana there. Right? Then it is said, you use your legs to go to temple. That is the recommendation. So like this, there are ample instructions with regard to doing this aspect of activity as a duty. Right? It's a duty that one has to perform spiritual activities. And duty is recommended for civilized person. Right? Any civilized person will follow the injunctions of the scriptures. At this point, we already discussed in verse number 5 and 6. In that context, we understood that any person of normal mental condition will follow the scriptural rules, which means a sane person will follow scriptural rules. Civilized person will follow the scriptural rules and regulations. Whereas a person who is uncivilized, he will not follow rules, regulations. And as you are telling, the best sacrifice, the best way of performing the sacrificial method in this Kali Yuga is to perform Sankirtana Yajna, as Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavatam also recommends the same thing. So this Yajna, if you do chanting Hare Krishna, either you do japa in a fixed manner and also participate in Sankirtana, the best process of worship. And apart from that, whenever possible, of course, every day you can have live darshan nowadays. So nice, wonderful arrangement. And whenever possible, we can visit the temple and take that inspiration practically with us. And I was telling you about the 6 exchanges which happens. You bring some gifts, and Krishna and the temple will give you some spiritual gifts to you, prasadam and other things. You disclose your mind to devotees, and devotees will give the spiritual perspective of how to handle things. Right? And bhungte bhojete, I was telling you, prasadam. You bring some eatables and offer to Krishna, and temple will give you some prasadam. That is the way you can perform our sacrifice. This sacrifice, wherein there is no expectation of rewards, where it is done as a matter of duty, wherein the sacrifices are performed, or the various process of yajnas are performed according to the scriptural rules, regulations. This sacrifice is called sacrifice in the mode of goodness. A vivid example of this in the Bhagavatam it is given is about the type of sacrifice which was performed by King Nabhi and his wife Meru Devi. Right? They were all very great personalities in the Vedic times. And because of the performance of these sacrifices, in a very nice way as a matter of duty, King Nabhi and Meru Devi begot a son by name Lord Rishabhadeva, who was actually incarnation of Lord Krishna himself. Right? So we get a very detailed description of this in the Bhagavatam. So we'll move to the next verse now. Verse number 12. Abhisandhayatu phalam dambartham api chaivayat ijjate bharatashrestha tam yajanam vidhi rajasam. Here Krishna is mentioning about sacrifice in the mode of passion, vidhi rajasam. So what is sacrifice in the mode of passion? But that sacrifice performed for some material end or benefit, or performed ostentatiously out of pride, is of the nature of passion, O chief of the Bharatas. Right? It's like with the mode of goodness, sacrifice, we had 3 important aspects. Here we can see in the mode of passion, Krishna is going to explain to us that there are 2 aspects with sacrifices in the mode of passion, Rajoguna. What are they? When you're doing it with some abhisandhayatu phalam, desiring some results. It is a point. Sacrifices performed for some material end or benefit. Or, second point, Krishna says, they are performed dambhartam api chaivayat. They are performed ostentatiously out of pride, just to make a show. But I am also performing some yajna, I am also performing sacrifices. This type of sacrifices performed with some material motivation, with material agenda, and also to make a show or out of pride is of the nature of passion, Krishna says. Right? So, like this, sometimes sacrifices and rituals people perform for elevation to some higher planetary systems or some material benefits in this world. And these sacrifices are mostly, these rituals are mostly, they're doing for their own material benefits and out of to show off to people that I am so nicely doing them. This is called performance of sacrifice in the mode of passion. We get a very good example of this in the Bhagavatam about one specific pastime of Daksha, known as Daksha Yajna. This Daksha is Prajapati, or the progenitor. Lord Brahma began the creation first of all creating different Prajapatis. Prajapatis are those personalities whom Lord Brahma created to so that they further populate this whole universe. That is the meaning of Prajapati. So Daksha was a very prominent Prajapati, and he was directly ordered by Lord Brahma that you increase the population in this universe. Once it so happened that there was a very big sacrifice arranged in some higher planetary systems for the universal welfare, wherein all the different big devatas and sages and everybody was, had been assembled there to participate in that sacrifice. So when all the different great sages and different devatas had all assembled there, this Prajapati Daksha was actually as brilliantly effulgent like the sun. He entered the arena of sacrifice with a lot of pride, and he wanted to show off that he's a very big man. But as soon as he entered, all the different people who were there, everybody got up and showed their respect to him because he was a very powerful person. But two people didn't get up. Who are they? Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Lord Brahma happened to be Daksha's father, so obviously he did not get up. And Lord Shiva happened to be the son-in-law of Daksha. Daksha's daughter, Sati, was given in marriage to Lord Shiva. So in one sense, from the material point of view, it was looking like Shiva is subordinate or junior to Daksha, so Shiva should have got up. But Shiva's position is much more exalted than Daksha in one sense. And Shiva was in a deep meditation when Daksha had entered there. So having these, so many other factors Bhagavatam explains, and Shiva did not get up in one sense. So Lord Shiva and Brahma didn't get up. But Daksha became very angry with Lord Shiva that why didn't he get up to show respects? And he started openly abusing and calling bad names to Lord Shiva. And, he was very badly insulted Lord Shiva, telling that, I've made a wrong choice of giving my daughter to you, like this. So many wrong things he had started telling. So Lord Shiva did not utter a word, rather. Right. So the people, the followers of Shiva who had come, they started, arguing, or rather trying to tell Daksha that what you're telling is wrong. So when this was happening, then the other people who were supporting Daksha, they started counter arguing like this, back and forth. There were a lot of arguments and cursing and counter cursing. Shiva finally left that arena of sacrifice. Later on, this Daksha, out of pride, and just to make a show, he started organizing one more yajna at his place. And for this yajna, he called all the different devatas, all the different personalities around across the universe, except Lord Shiva. That is, a vivid description is given in Bhagavatam. I'm just briefly describing it. So when he started performing this yajna, somehow the wife of Lord Shiva, Sati, is also daughter of Daksha, she started becoming, very anxious that my father is performing yajna. Nevertheless, he has some misunderstanding with you, but I think I should go, or we should go, both of us. Like this, she started asking Lord Shiva. Shiva gave her a nice instruction that no, please don't go. It's not good. Your father is, not happy with us. He may further, he may conduct himself in such a way that it may not be good for you. Like that, Shiva started instructing Sati. But Sati, was very much inclined to go to attend that sacrifice. She persisted, and I want to go. In that way, she left Shiva's place and went to the sacrificial arena, where her father was performing sacrifice, where Shiva was not invited actually. When she came to the place of sacrifice, Daksha, didn't even notice that his daughter had come. Rather, he was, just pretending as though he's busy with so many things. Even though, the mother and other sisters of Sati were all very anxious to meet her, but out of fear, they were also a little reluctant, out of the fear for Daksha. So when Sati saw openly such an insult was being made to Lord Shiva, who is a great Vaishnava, she started, telling Daksha that actually what you're doing is very wrong. You're doing things against Vedic injunctions. So I don't want the body what you have given me. I want to give up this body, and I want to give up my life. Like this Sati, actually, with her yogic power, she sat down and she invoked fire, and the whole body got completely burnt off. That is how then what happened as soon as this happened, some followers of Lord Shiva who had come with Sati, they saw such a drastic step Sati has taken. They started destroying all the different things around there, and a big fight happened. And when Shiva understood that my wife Sati has given up her life, he became very angry, and he created a demon by name Veerabhadra, who went and devastated the entire sacrificial ceremony. He killed Daksha. So like this, the pastime goes on. Basically, here we can see Daksha Yajna is one example of performance of Yajna out of pride and out of some material benefit. Right? So even in the modern days, we see people would like to perform some ritual, some activity, spiritual activity, and want to make a show. Right? Humne itna daan de diya that mandir mein. Right? Or I'm doing big yajna ritual. Want to have a status in WhatsApp and Facebook and all the social media. That is not good. Right? That is simply making a show. See, this activity of any sacrifice should be done as a matter of duty, not to make a show. Right? Krishna has to recognize what we are doing. Not that we make a show of everybody and show that as though I'm very religious, I'm very punctual, I'm very, I'm so nicely performing so many rules, regulations. No, that is not required. That is called sacrifice in the mode of passion. Now we'll move to the last verse of this section. The sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. 13th verse. Here Krishna is explaining. Vidihinam asishtannam mantrahinam adakshinam shraddha virahitam yajnam tamasam parichakshate. Right? And that sacrifice performed in defiance of scriptural injunctions, in which no spiritual food is distributed, no hymns are chanted, and no remunerations are made to the priests, and which is faithless. That sacrifice is of the nature of ignorance. Here, Krishna is mentioning that again, different points Krishna is mentioning. We'll just go through in detail. Krishna is mentioning that there are people who perform sacrifices in the mode of ignorance, and the nature of such sacrifices will be that they will be performed in defiance of the instructions of scriptures. Whereas in the mode of passion, we saw they follow scriptures, but out of pride, out of arrogance, to make a show ostentatiously, and they want to just do them for some material need. Finally, sacrifices, what is the purpose of sacrifice? Very clearly Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter that the different types of sacrifices mentioned for different types of people according to their different natures. Krishna mentions very clearly in 4th chapter. And the purpose of sacrifices, as Krishna very clearly mentions, that sarva karma kilam jnane parisamapyate. Krishna makes a very wonderful statement like this. Sarvam karmakhilam partha jnane parisamapyate. This 4th chapter, verse number 33. So Krishna says all sacrifices and all the different rituals should culminate in transcendental knowledge. The purpose of performing sacrifice is that the transcendental knowledge should awaken in a person's consciousness. If that is not the purpose, then the purpose of sacrifice is, the performance sacrifice will remain on the material platform. Doesn't have any spiritual benefit. That is the point. Right? Prabhupada explains in the purport of the verse in 4th chapter that this is the mystery of all sacrifices, or mystery of all activities of sacrifice. That sacrifices should be done or performed in such a way that finally the performer will reach the platform of transcendental understanding. Right? In Krishna consciousness, you see every activity, what is recommended, chanting Hare Krishna, or even going to temple and having worship, anything you do, it is awakening your transcendental knowledge. Whereas the activities performed, sacrifices performed in passion, they are not going to awaken your transcendental knowledge. Rather, they are only meant for some material benefits. Whereas the sacrifice in the mode of ignorance, which we are just now discussing, is even more degrading, because First and foremost, they are performed without any proper injunctions from Vedas. Vidihinam. No rules, regulations followed as per the scriptures. Asrishtanam. Because every sacrifice, you are supposed to see that the food is distributed, spiritual food. Yajna shishta shinachanto. Yajna shishta means for yajna, performance of sacrifice, you are supposed to offer food. And the prasadam from that yajna is known as yajna shishta. So wherein this food has to be distributed as much as possible, because it is prasadam of Krishna. So there is no following of rules, regulations, firstly. Secondly, no spiritual food is offered and distributed. Mantrahinam. Right? They are not following any standard ways of chanting mantras, simply as a matter of their own concocted way. They want to do some ritual. And lastly, Krishna says, no dakshina is given, no remuneration is made. Right? Because every sacrifice, you are supposed to give dakshina to the performers, the priests who perform the yajna. That completes the whole sacrifice. Whereas the people in the mode of ignorance, they perform sacrifices because they don't know rules, regulations, they don't follow the aspect of distributing spiritual food, they're not chanting any mantras, there's no remuneration for the priests, and it is faithlessly done like this. Shraddha virahitam yajna. Such a performance of sacrifice in the mode of ignorance will lead to a great degradation. So Srila Prabhupada explains very nicely. Anything done in the mode of ignorance like this is actually faithlessness. Right? Faith is actually in the pure goodness in one sense. Sometimes people worship some devatas to just make some money, or and after that they want to enjoy that money for some personal sense gratification. Right? Nowadays, it has become very common that people in the place of worship, they want to just have worship and earn money, earn a living by that. That is a very wrong system. That is what is Krishna condemning here. Such ceremonial shows of religiosity, Krishna says, are only cheating religions. To make a show, you make just in the name of doing some puja worship, you don't even chant some mantras properly. Right? You don't follow the system. These temples are meant to distribute prasadam, which you are not doing. Right? And you don't know the mantras, and you don't follow the rules, regulations properly. Then these are all activities in the mode of ignorance. They're all in the mode of darkness. They produce a demoniac mentality and do not benefit human society. So, like this, we see in the present day society, there are so-called spiritual organizations or so-called some gurus or some incarnations who have manufactured their own way of worship, and they have concocted their own ways of sacrifice, which they'll cut and paste from here and there, and start doing so many things. It's like in the recent times, we have come across after this pandemic started, people are bringing out different type of mantras, telling that this is from this Purana, this Shastra. All these days it was all unknown. After certain time, after the pandemic started, 2-3 months later, this all surfaced up. Until this is what is told in this Purana, that Devata, if you do worship this puja, you do this ritual, you do all these things will be okay. See how people are trying to use religion and want to get some material benefit, earn some money. This is not proper. This is faithlessness. Accepting religion as a matter of, as a profession to just earn money is faithlessness. Right? Archa Vigraha, very nice, instruction our Srila Prabhupada gives. He quotes from his Guru Maharaj instructions. Just like Archa Vigraha, we say. Archa Vigraha is the deity form of Lord Krishna in the temple. Which is supposed to be taken care with proper worship and proper rules, regulations, just like you're discussing on that. Going to a temple really is worth in a proper place of worship where all the rules, regulations are being followed. It is essential that we visit such place of worship and take proper spiritual inspiration. Of course, there are some so-called temples wherein the temple is made just to make a living by the people, wherein there is no proper worship being done. Archa Vigraha, which is supposed to be offered different types of worship, and offerings are not being done properly. Archa Vigraha is become sort of a Galagraha. Galagraha means it has become a burden for that particular people who are taking care of that. They think simply we have got some stone statue here, we have to simply do some ritual. They don't change the dress of the deities properly. They don't have the worship properly. Just as a matter of some ritual, do something. That is in the mode of ignorance. In fact, Srila Prabhupada in his life, a nice pastime happened. We know Srila Prabhupada was very much attached to the deities of Radha Govinda in Kolkata near his home in his young age. He was very small. It was just maybe 1 or 2 years. From that time onwards, up to the time he was going to college, every day he used to visit that temple, Radha Govinda deities. In that time, all the families in that area were very religious and very nicely devoted to Radha Govinda deities. Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America and came back to Kolkata for health reasons, that is in 1967, he was almost 72 years old at that time. When he visited that place again, he saw the standard of worship was reduced like anything. Deities were kept in a corner. They were not given new proper clothing. Worship was not happening as per the standard. Prabhupada felt very bad. How the degradation has happened. That is how in the present, presently we see many temples in India at least are seeing such form of a situation wherein they don't have proper worship being performed. Just as a matter of ritual, no mantras being chanted properly, no rituals being performed as per the standard understanding. So this is called degradation. This is called more rituals or sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish centers to train people, to make them understand, because when there is proper understanding, proper knowledge for people, their value, the respect for the temple also goes up like anything. Okay, so this is what we can understand about sacrifices which Krishna is mentioning in this verse today. 3 types of sacrifices under different modes of nature. Right? We'll continue our discussions in the next session. Thank you everybody for participating in this session. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.